above those concrete troughs. So they'll come on a slight bending line to the first fence and slightly uphill, which I always like for the start. I am planning on using it at some point. I want to keep the root ball on it and actually use, cut it into probably 3 sections, so it will feature later on here. But it's been quite wet this spring, as everybody knows, so we didn't want to come and start sort of trying to move it, working on it, and absolutely trash the ground. So it's just staying there in all of its glory for the moment. But the warm-up will be just on the lower side where it normally is, distance at that point, because the next bit for the 4-star is quite intense. You've got 5 ABC, 6 AB, then 7, 8 and 9 all related, so it kind of comes to you quite thick and fast. So whereas I was talking about it, so actually I think what, 2 reasons. 1, the ground needs a break. 2, actually for the 2 and the 3-star, won't do them any harm not to go down there. So I've had to do a bigger loop in the middle to get that bit of distance back. So I thought actually that makes it a little bit different for this May.
From a live stream point of view, it's great.
Yes, there you are. And there you are, there's number 3 reason why.
As the grass grows, because it's got good root structure, then it pulls moisture out and it just holds the ground together. And even when it gets firmer, you still have a bit more compaction, a bit more bounce back, and you have that spring back into it. But I'm pleased.
Adrian's just mocked this up, so obviously the front part of it is a portable mim rail, so that will stay. But as you can see, the back rail's not been, they'll put posts in, and that will be reverse pinned. So Adrian's just sort of offered this up at, I think I'd said initially a 160 top spread. I'm looking at this now thinking that's a little bit more than I want, so I'll bring that into 150 top spread. And then a curving line to what will be a mim corner at the B element.
And you mentioned take-off points. Where would you actually measure it? I mean,
fine. So if you, yeah, totally. So you would be measuring that front rail from here.
And the back rail.
And the back rail. So Andrew, grab a flag and just show them how you would measure it. Andrew's a TA and a TD, so this is his department.
So imagine this is the level.
Yes, this is spirit level.
Spirit level. You get it perfectly level, and you're measuring from the take-off point. Say, it's not quite long enough. Down. Show jumping, you measure from the directly beside the fence. But usually when you're jumping, you're on a flat surface, or it's fairly flat. But with imagine it, because if you got a cross-country fence, and if you were measuring from the actual point of the fence, and you're going uphill, the fence would be huge from takeoff. Or if you're going downhill, the fence would be quite small, tiny. It's always from takeoff. And there's always an argument and debate about what exactly where you want to pick as takeoff. Yeah. We take it for the where you expect the average.
For show jumping, you land and you walk 2 normal strides to your landing point, then you're well. You know, it really encouraged positive riding, had to be quite committed. It's very clear to the horses, they can see what's behind it. They've already been through the water and got their feet wet, which I think helps a lot, and I think that's enabled me to be quite bold with the fence going in here because they've already been through it once. And then they've got nothing coming out until you get behind that tree, and there's a tricky angle of 2 offset logs, which is exactly, to be fair, very, very similar to what I had last year here. But I really liked Harrett Road last year. I really, really like that, and to be honest, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm very happy with that, and I'd like them to have that same question again before they run out into the mound field. We can go up to those angled logs in a minute and have a look at those because they are quite offset, so you have to be quite careful. right-hand side of this corner going that way, and then they curve round on a nice force ride to the left-hand shoulder. So that does just give them an easier option there for perhaps the less experienced combinations, or if they had a problem at 13A. Take it straight or go long and waste a lot of time. So I haven't ruled out playing with some dressing and puttings. Don't be surprised if you see a little island appear in the middle. I'm waiting until it's had a shave, and we'll see what it looks like then. Yeah, exactly. That would all be redone and greened up. So I think that's I quite like that. It's quite a good question to do with that water. It's a small pond. There's not an awful lot I can do with it, is the honest truth. I've done sort of narrow fences going in and out to death, but I really like the duck blind, the whole sort of brush around it. It's kind of quite an old-fashioned question, and it's one we haven't seen for, well, years really. But it suits the end of the course really well, and it suits this pond. So I think they should get a really nice ride through there. Ride that better. Sometimes when you give them a lot of space in between, actually they change their mind, they wiggle a little bit, and actually it can be harder. So I think for all levels, this is a real second to last fence, nearly home, but 100% can't disregard or underestimate this combination, because it could just, because the ground just falls away down to our right and the corners are all right-handed, the ground, that it just could take you away. And if you're sat on a tired horse and you get there a little bit off it, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some glance-offs at any of those three corners at the respective levels. Psyche and the theory behind that, meaning that riders are a little bit more respectful and careful to actually not have the level penalties, so they actually wide the fence, wide the question better. Whereas if that was, for example, a brush corner at the end, the temptation would be to just flatten them and there you go, and actually, so because the TDs very often come along, wheel tight, get 100 metres less than I do, and I'm like, yeah, but this isn't like an Aston Walls or a flat track. Trust me, please give them a little bit more, because nobody, it'll still be hard to get time. So I'll be having I'm happy with how I've wheeled it, and I'm hoping that, I'm sure the TD will agree with that, because actually it's quite good, because certainly one of the TDs here was here last year, so understands the venue, understands the terrain, so I'll be expecting that to be a fairly easy conversation.
The interesting thing was when it was the week of the 5-star, when I found it out, I didn't tell anyone, none of the riders. Burley's elevation, I heard this, got this from Cross Country app. So no, it was Cross Country app. So at Burley, they have an elevation gain and an elevation fall of 80 metres. For the 5-star here, we had an elevation gain and fall of 160 metres. So we had twice the terrain of Burley. Well, at that point, a week before the event, I thought there was no point telling the riders. It was too late to tell them that. But it was interesting, and actually at that event, I would say the most influential part of the cross country was the terrain. It was surprising. It was surprising in some ways. We knew it was always going to be tough, but I think there were some of the riders who were a bit surprised how tough the terrain was.
And I think it's tougher because they're shorter pulls. Like Burley, you have much longer pulls, but then they have much longer to get the oxygen back into their lungs. Whereas here, they're kind of short and sharp, but more often, more frequent. So yeah, I think it's something we've definitely
But we've learned a lot from this.
definitely. And I think certainly last year running this way and finishing here, everything finished really full of running. And I've gone pretty much near minimum distance on all 3 tracks. So for the 2 long, the 3 long and the 4 short, they're all on the lower side of distance wise because we don't need, I don't want to punish them, you don't need to. It's, there's enough test out there for them.